You send someone ahead to prepare the hotel room for you.
It's called preparing the sexy.
Is the music industry about to fall with the indictment of Sean Combs? Questions are circling about who else might be wrapped up in these allegations of sex trafficking, racketeering, and assault. But we're going to break down the potential fallout with an attorney to the music stars, Bradford Cohen. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is a Law&Crime legal alert. So recent studies have uncovered a link between Depo-Provera, aka the Depo shot, and an increased risk of brain tumors. Lawsuits are being filed against Pfizer, the manufacturer of Depo-Provera, alleging that they failed to warn patients and doctors about this risk and instead rushed the drug to market while downplaying the adverse event reports. So if you've been diagnosed with a brain tumor or you're experiencing symptoms like headaches, vision problems, seizures, or other neurological issues, you may qualify for compensation. And Wright & Schulte, one of our legal sponsors, is a national firm helping those injured to ensure their claims are thoroughly presented. Visit deposhotclaims.com/sidebar to answer less than 10 questions and check your eligibility to file a claim. One of the main questions that has come out from the arrest and indictment of Sean Diddy Combs is what will be the ripple effects? Who else will be caught up in this case? Who else may be implicated in Combs' alleged criminal scheme, whether as a witness, maybe as a potential co-defendant, and more specifically, we have to wonder if those are going to be major players in the music industry. That was Combs' industry, after all. Rap mogul, music mogul, producer. He hung out with music industry icons for years. So we want to think about that. And think about that for a second, because Combs is currently sitting in Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center as he awaits trial on racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution, and by nature of those charges, when you think about that, Combs, if you believe the prosecution's case, couldn't have committed these alleged crimes on his own. I mean, for conspiracy, he needs to have agreed with someone else to engage in these criminal activities, to further the goals, to carry out the interests of this alleged criminal enterprise. Prosecutors have said in their filings there are co-conspirators, that he had those facilitate the sexual abuse and sex trafficking of women. Combs is accused of orchestrating these freak-offs, these elaborate sexual performances that he would watch or participate in, where he would force women to engage in sex acts with male sex workers. So who else was involved? If this campaign of sex trafficking, assaults, threats, violence, obstruction, forced labor, kidnapping, arson has been going on for years, as prosecutors allege in their indictment, who helped? Maybe at the very least, who was aware of what was allegedly going on? And you have to wonder if there are those in the music industry, more specifically, that will get caught up in this. And what really got me thinking about this is that there was a piece in the Irish Star, and a source apparently told the Irish Star the following. Huge music stars have been lined up to talk during the Diddy's case, as fans fear it could spell the end for hip-hop. 90 stars who were huge during Diddy's heyday and worked with him in the late Biggie Smalls are said to have been approached by authorities to talk. It could open up a can of worms. The way things are going, it could spell the end of hip-hop. Should these stars choose to talk and divulge information, then the industry could become even more tainted. They rolled with Diddy and Biggie at the time, so their version of events will be invaluable, as there's so many sides to this story. Well, to talk about this, I want to bring on somebody who has represented a lot of high-profile music stars like Drake, Kodak Black, Travis Scott. I'm joined by Bradford Cohen, infamous attorney, friend of the show. Great to see you, Bradford. Let me start with this statement from the Irish Star. What do you make of that? Is this, you think there's high-profile people in the music industry who are maybe worried right now? Do you think that this could be the end of hip-hop? What's your take on it?
I don't think it's going to be the end of hip-hop. I think hip-hop goes far beyond Sean Combs. So I don't think it's going to be the end of hip-hop. What I think that's going to happen is that a lot of people are probably worried, very worried. I think that just not music industry. I think that also people in the entertainment field as well, because Sean Combs he had a net that went very, very deep into Hollywood, into producers, into actors, into musicians. And I think everyone wanted to go to a Diddy party at one point in their careers because that was kind of like the thing. in the late 90s, early 2000s. I remember I knew people that were invited to Diddy parties. I was never invited to a Diddy party. And I thought to myself at the time, boy, I wish I could go to a Diddy party. And now I'm so happy that I never did. But yeah, I think that the worrisome part here is that you have an individual who's sitting in jail. That never helps the psyche. They start offering deals. They start asking, talking to the prosecutors. I don't think he's going to cut a deal. But listen, I've been wrong on that before. I've saw people that I thought were like real guys that would never flip, never turn, aka Sammy the Bull, aka any of those guys. And you think these guys would never turn. They're never going to give up that lifestyle. They're never going to turn, and they end up turning. And in today's society, it's not that big of a deal. Back in the 90s and the 2000s, snitch, snitch, snitch was a big deal. And now you see most of these guys flip, and it's not that big of a deal. Now, do I know if he's going to flip? No. Do I think that that he may? It's always a possibility. But I think for him, it's more of clearing his name. So I think he's going to go to a trial. And then at trial, if he takes the stand, I think, yeah, people should be worried because he's probably going to mention some names that I'm sure were unindicted co-conspirators or cut deals with the government, and you're going to see a flood of individuals, including, I think, Cassie. They're going to probably have some dirt on her as well to say that she was a willing participant in all these things and that she helped organize these things and things of that nature.
Well, I think the bigger picture, you make some great points there, particularly about whether or not he's going to take a deal, because the idea of him accepting a deal, there would have to be prison time attached to that, and significant prison time. I don't think that he would, at this point, it seems surprising he would agree to that. But as you said, we can't be 100% sure. But the reason I also thought about this topic is because Charlemagne, the radio host, said that when Combs was indicted, he says if he gets racketeering and sex trafficking for freak-offs, there are going to be others involved. And it made me think the idea of, look, there is a difference from a legal point of view. Diddy has a wild party versus Diddy committed illegal freak-off sex parties, with drugs and forcing people to be a part of it and sex workers. But a part of me wondered, is this what he's being accused of very commonplace in the music industry? Maybe not to the degree of freak-offs, but should other people be concerned that this was the norm in the industry? And if they're going after Sean Combs, whether or not they're even part of this case, could they be prosecuted separately for what they allegedly did in similar situations?
Sure. You've seen kind of a ripple effect in terms of other people being sued civilly for different accusations. Not as bad as Sean Combs, but you did see a little bit of the door opening where people were like, okay, we can file these lawsuits. A lot of these lawsuits are just not, they don't make any sense, or they're not put together well, or they're not represented by the right attorneys. They're just attorneys that kind of jump on the bandwagon as opposed to attorneys that specialize in this kind of thing. I don't know if it's quote unquote the norm. I think that this was kind of his thing in terms of these white parties, in terms of these different kind of parties. I think maybe in the Playboy Mansion days, maybe there were some things that went on in Hollywood that not everyone was privy to, not everyone knew what was going on. But I don't think that is prevalent in that world. I think it was more of, this was kind of, Sean Combs was known for not quote unquote freak-offs, but these white parties and these different parties in the Hamptons and these different parties around the country in Miami and in LA. I don't see that being prevalent throughout the industry. Certainly the people that were partaking in the sordid side of those parties, like I said, should probably be worried, because I would imagine that the women that are testifying against Sean Combs are probably going to be naming other names as well if there was other individuals that were there. But you haven't seen those lawsuits come out, right? You haven't seen the Busbys of the world, suing these other actors or other musicians. And I think that would be where the next shoe would fall, if it would fall at all.
It was interesting. Radar Online reported, and so take this with a grain of salt, but they basically said that music icon Clive Davis is in panic mode because of his connections to Sean Combs, and it's kind of more of a specific example of what we're talking about, people who might be concerned about having any connections to Sean Combs. But I think it goes to this larger question. If you were around Sean Combs and let's say you knew what was happening, and that could be an allegation, you knew what was happening, and not saying that's the case with Clive Davis, but if you saw and knew, but you didn't do anything, not that you participated, but you saw and you knew and you didn't do anything, I think you don't even want to be mentioned in the same sentence as Sean Combs, even if you're not being criminally charged. But if you saw and knew, how much trouble would you be in? I guess that's different than being an enabler, or is it an enabler?
I don't think it's really an enabler. I mean, you'd have to have some sort of participation to be criminally liable, right? It's just if you saw it and you knew that was going on. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I'm sure knew what Harvey Weinstein was up to and knew it was like a joke in Hollywood. I think I watched, a series on Harvey Weinstein and people were joking like, hey, everyone knows not to go up to Harvey Weinstein's room. So a lot of people probably knew what the basis of that joke was. The same, I'm sure that people know about, different things about Sean Combs. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be liable in a criminal sense. Certainly the court, the court of society will look upon that very poorly. Right. And I think that I think more people are worried about that losing their deals, losing their jobs, losing, different kinds of money streams. I think that's a bigger worry for a lot of people.
Let me give you an example. And we don't know how much the civil lawsuits are actually playing a role in the criminal case, whether or not the people who have already sued Sean Combs will be government witnesses. But assuming for a moment, let's say you have somebody because by the way, in the indictment, it doesn't name names. It doesn't even mention specific episodes. But the civil lawsuits are pretty specific. So let's say, for example, Dawn Richard, who filed the lawsuit against Sean Combs, decides that is a government witness in his criminal case. In her complaint, I want to read you what it says. It says, in the weeks and months leading up to the Bad Boy Interscope deal, Mr. Combs had frequent meetings with producer and then CEO of Interscope Records, Jimmy Iovine. On one such occasion, Combs hosted a dinner at a West Hollywood, California restaurant. Among the guests at the dinner were celebrities like Neo and Usher, as well as Mr. Iovine. At the dinner, Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura, meaning Cassandra Ventura, who, by the way, is probably a star witness for the prosecution. At the dinner, Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura had an argument. In front of the dinner guests, Mr. Combs hissed at Miss Ventura in a screaming whisper and forcefully punched her in the stomach, causing her to double over in visible pain, crying. Miss Clark escorted Miss Ventura out of the restaurant, and Mr. Combs remained and continued socializing with the dinner guests. So if you have Cassandra Ventura recounting that on the stand in Combs' criminal case, or you have Jimmy Iovine being called as a witness, or you have Neo being called as a witness, or you have Dawn Richard being called as a witness, and you're seeing these high-profile people in the music industry who are alleged witnesses to what's going on but didn't do anything more. As going back to what you said, that could be problematic for them, not necessarily on a legal front, but from a PR point of view.
Yeah, especially Jovine, the guys that are still in the business, that still are making money from the business, that still have a name in the business. I think that is the most worrisome. The guys, I think, from the 90s that, made their money and kind of are on, coast and getting, residuals and things like that. No one wants to be associated with this whole thing. No one wants to take the stand and have to testify. But I think they have less in terms of judgmental stuff going on in society than, the guys that are still in the hip hop world, still in the musician world. I think they are the ones that probably don't matter. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You don't want people to think that you willingly participated or that you unwillingly participated but said nothing. I think that's a bigger thing where you just kept your mouth shut, because I think in today's society that will be one of the things that you'll be judged on, not criminally, but certainly in the court of public opinion.
How much do you think the government is reaching out to these high-profile people in the music industry? A, whether they've been mentioned by witnesses or alleged victims, or B, if they're on the tapes. So the government says they have videotapes, digital evidence. that will corroborate the witness testimony, that will show evidence of these freak-offs. If you're on that tape or someone mentioned you, do you think the government is reaching out to everybody? I mean, that seems like a monumental task.
I do. I think they're probably reaching out to all those individuals. What we consider monumental, the government considers a day at work. They have unlimited resources. They have unlimited amounts of individuals that can help them reach out to these individuals. They have all of the FBI, all of their Southern District of New York. It is an awesome power, and being on the other side of that and witnessing what they can accomplish within a 24-hour period, I can tell you that I think they are reaching out to those individuals. I think they're covering all their bases. This is a very high-profile case, and when it comes to high-profile cases, a lot of pressure, and that pressure is to deliver, right? And to deliver, you want to make sure every rock is turned over, every stone. And I think that, yes, they're going to reach out to everyone they possibly can and everyone that could possibly testify in their favor.
And it's not just the government. I have to imagine that one of the other concerns is, you mentioned civil lawsuits, being named in upcoming lawsuits, because we know that there is this Texas attorney named Tony Busby, says he plans to file lawsuits on behalf of 120 alleged victims of Sean Combs, including those who say they were minors when they were abused. And in fact, by the way, 6 suits were already filed at the beginning of the week, claiming that Combs sexually assaulted a minor, that there's multiple allegations of rape. This stems from 1995 through 2021. Various businesses where these alleged attacks happened are also named in the suit, like Macy's and Marriott. And Busby has indicated that in time, he will name names. He will go after the celebrities who either participated in the abuse or facilitated this abuse in some way, this alleged abuse. And he has claimed to TMZ that he has even sent out demand letters to high-profile people to settle before he files the lawsuits against them. He claims some people have already done that. Maybe there are people in the music industry. What do you think about that?
I don't doubt it. I think that I think Mr. Busby has a way of he's very grandiose in the way that he presents his cases. He goes to the press prior to filing the actual lawsuit, which is unusual. I don't really see that happening a lot, and I don't know if I wouldn't doubt that he's willing to name names, and he probably has sent out demand letters to certain individuals. I don't know if those certain individuals have settled or not. Obviously, that's something that you will never find out about because there's probably NDAs signed. But I don't doubt that there are individuals that are being named that are famous or that have some sort of fame that would not want to be named, and I don't know what the evidence would be against them. But I think this individual's, Sean Combs, case has scared a lot of people. And I think that when you're in a situation where let's say you're making $10 or $15 million a year just in endorsements, you probably would settle a case for $5 to $10 million, not to lose that revenue stream of 10 to 15. And the thing is like I said, whether or not it has legs, doesn't have legs, is true or not true, there is a certain economic weighing that has to take place in everyone's mind, whether or not to sit and fight that charge, and knowing that if you do sit and fight that charge, if there's other individuals out there and then they get wind of this one lawsuit, then all of a sudden it opens the floodgates. And I think that's what happened with Sean Combs with Cassie. I don't know how that all came about, but if I was given a complaint making the allegations that Cassie was making, and knowing the revenue streams coming in yearly, and that she was asking for, I think, $35 or $40 million, economically, it was probably smarter. And obviously, hindsight's 2020. But even at the time, economically, it was smarter to settle that case, whether or not, Sean Combs believed those allegations or not. Now, the dumbest part of that was to let the lawsuit be filed and then settle the same day or the next day. Yeah. That was the dumbest. because once you commit, you have to take a path. It's like Mr. Miyagi says, you walk on the right side of the road, you're okay. You walk on the left side of the road, okay. You walk in the middle, you get squashed like a grape. So it's the same thing when it comes to lawsuits. You either are in all out war mode or you're settling. There is no middle of the road, especially for me. So if you say to me, hey, I want to fight this, I didn't do it, this is blackmail, then you have to then fight that tooth and nail, take her deposition, get ready for war. And that's what he should have done. Because at a bare minimum, he would have at least gotten some discovery and things that he's not entitled to now, a deposition, things of that nature that now he can't get when he's in this federal situation, in this criminal federal situation. So I think that was very dumb. So like I said, in any situation, it's economical and it's a weighing factor and it's what you can live with. And it's something that sometimes you have to just do and move on. And that's just the society we live in.
Not only with Bradford do you get incredible legal analysis, you also get a Karate Kid reference. And that was not something that I expected, but it's something I needed. And I didn't realize I needed it until now.
I'm glad.
Bradford, I know you're a busy man. I wanted to ask you one more question about this.
Sure.
The defense. The defense could be, when you think about this and taking it 360 analysis of it, the defense could be, this was the music industry. This was the culture. It was wild, crazy sex parties, wild, but consensual. The issue I have with that is, how much can they expand that defense? Because would they have to admit, yes, there were drugs, yes, there were male sex workers, but again, everything was consensual? Because if you're admitting that, then essentially you would be admitting, Sean Combs would be admitting transportation to engage in prostitution. You're transporting sex workers for purposes of prostitution. And the prosecutors say they have the receipts, they have the payments, they have business records to back this up. Do you admit to all the drugs? Because that's actually one of the underlying crimes of the racketeering conspiracy case. So how much can they say all of this was consensual, this was the culture, this was the industry, without essentially admitting key elements of the crimes? Correct.
That's what makes this case so difficult, right? It's like, whenever it comes to these cases, and it's either you're representing, it's that generally speaking, you don't get a lot of John cases. And this is considered a John case, right? That he's hiring hookers, males, females, to fly in and do all these kind of things. You don't get a lot of John cases, but like when you represent individuals who are accused of, living off the proceeds of a prostitute, which is essentially pimping, right? If you represent those individuals, your defense is generally like, hey, everyone was making money, but it's like you're admitting to the elements. You're almost looking for a jury nullification. You're almost looking for a jury to say, hey, these guys and girls were hookers. They were getting paid $10,000 to show up and party and enjoy themselves and blah, blah, blah. No one complained at the time. It's almost like a jury nullification. That's what makes this case so difficult, is that he's going to have to admit to some of that stuff, because I think it's going to be very difficult not to admit to it. And I think he's going to put some blame on Cassie and everybody else, these people that are saying, hey, I was forced to do this. And I think you're going to find out during the course of the trial that those individuals that are turning on him now were some of the individuals that were probably not just participating, but probably assisting in procuring individuals and bringing people in and, things of that nature. And I think that's why, Cassie had to make a deal. And I think that's why ultimately she's testifying against Sean Combs, and also that when that video came out, it would be very difficult to charge her, right? Because that video came out, and I think it was, I personally, and I don't know for sure, but I personally have the opinion that that was her team that leaked that. I don't believe it was the government, and I know they're making accusations that the government leaked that video, and I don't even think they had the video when it leaked. I think that Cassie's legal team probably leaked that video. And in order to to throw a blanket of innocence on her, that this is, and the video is horrible. I'm not making an excuse. No, I'm saying the video is probably one of the worst videos that I've seen. But that being said, I think that it was leaked to demonstrate that, she did not do anything of her own free will. And after that video came out, there is no prosecutor in the country that would have charged Cassie as a unindicted co-conspirator or as a co-conspirator at all.
It's unfortunately, look, on one hand, when someone makes an allegation, in a legal point of view, it's just an allegation. From a human point of view, from a PR point of view, she alleged some really heinous things against Sean Combs. And there was a lot of lawsuits that came, but it was that video that I think changed everything. It was the first time I think a lot of people said, there's something going on here. He really did, maybe did that. And look, just that video doesn't mean that he's guilty of sex trafficking or racketeering, but my gosh, did that change the whole story. Bradford Cohen, thank you so much for coming on. So good to see you. I mean, I always love having you on. I know you're a busy man, so really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.